Hey everyone, my name's Chris Lambert. On this channel, we talk Kanye West, and today we're talking this very interesting interview that Nikolai Skrobot did. You can see photos of Kanye kind of summarizing. A sound engineer for Kanye says that Donda is actually not finished yet, and that Ye wants to go through all the archives and make a playlist of forgotten tracks, which two separate thoughts, right? It's not that it's not finished and that this playlist is part of it. It's that it's not finished, but also Nikolai is also going through the archives and putting together a playlist. So you can see the quote here. Actually, this album is not finished yet. That is, it came out, but it is quite possible that after some time, we'll hear a different sound, options, themes, films. The keyword being there, after some time, and quite possible, right? So it's not a sure thing, but it seems like there's at least been some conversation about doing addendums to Donda, you know? Now Donda is out, and I'm working on his old tracks because West wanted to go through all the archives and make a playlist of forgotten tracks. There are a lot of them, therefore, in the near future, I will work in this direction. And you can see here that Poopy D-Ban has a list of potential songs that are from the archives, right? Can You Be, which is a highly desired one. Can't Look at My Eyes, LA Monster, Awesome, Slave Name, Good Things Don't Last, Alien. I mean, 80 degrees hurricane, but it could be that we get a finished demo version of that. Cash to Burn, One I Love, City in the Sky, New Body, Bad Night, When I See It, We Got Love, God Level, I Feel Like That's, Rick Drunk. I actually don't know that one. All Day Remix, Mama's Boyfriend, Take Me to the Lights, which all would be stellar additions to the actual like released material that Kanye has put out. I mean, just getting finished versions of Can You Be and LA Monster would make me happy, but getting the rest of those would be an incredible win for all of us. God Level too. God Level's one that I've wanted to hear like a final CD quality version of for a long time. So this is the interview right here. So we're going to read through it in the Russian language. I don't know if you know this about me, but I don't know how to speak Russian. So what we're going to do here is go to this page that is a really poor translation of the article and just kind of go through, because there were a few other things that I saw come up. So you can see that they say Skrobot reported in the late 2000s he moved from Belarus to the USA and worked with West's team for several years. Weekly Bible reading, moving to the stadium locker room, maximum flexibility because the West likes recording not only in the studio, but also in the car, on the plane, or on the farm in Wyoming. One, this is how life is, sound man that Kanye West looks like. So we're going to be dealing with a rough translation, but it should be fun, you know? Oh man, I am bright on screen, aren't I? For 2 years now, Belarusian Nikolai Skrobot has been working with Kanye as a sound engineer. He moved to the States in 2009, took a job at one of the recording studios in Los Angeles, where he met the author of Donda. The full interview with Skrobot can be read in the onliner by website. Below are some excerpts. Introducing him, work on Jesus is King. I worked at Conway Recording Studios for a little over 2 years. Then I was invited to work with Kanye West. It was February 2019. So a little over 2 years ago, right? 2.5 years ago. The first recording was made with 2 actors, but without Kanye. We were finishing the album Jesus is King then, which actors might actually be just artists, musicians. I do 1 or 2 sessions a month in about 6 months. Then I met West. All was well. We didn't bother each other. They offered me cooperation for a long time, but they didn't say which one was specific, and I'm not interested. The very opportunity to work with him was cool. We finished the album, and I started to think, now the work on the album is over, and mine could end with him. Ooh, drama. But I'd rather work West for 2 or 3 weeks and lose everything than give up and continue working in the studio, which is also great. So he quit his job, essentially. He quit his job at Conway Recording Studios with the idea that he could go and work with Kanye for 2 to 3 weeks, and so be it, or that it might persist and become a longer term gig. But regardless, he was happy to go and have that experience with Kanye and see what happened. But it turned out that we were releasing Jesus is King, and a day later, Kanye said that we were starting to work on a new album. From that moment on, I was practical with his team for 2 years. We flew a lot, changed a lot of studios. At the same time, so that means like right after Jesus is King came out in 2019, right? October of 2019, Kanye went right into recording the next album, which lines up with the fact that it was March 2020 that we first started to hear rumors that he was recording in Mexico. And then we ended up getting told that Donda was coming out right in July. So it turned out that Kanye had actually been working on things for almost a year at that point, but it was just very quiet in terms of the Kanye online community knowledge about a project for months and months. Okay. So at the same time, the coronavirus started, thanks to which I had much more to do when we were working on the album, which, like, thanks to which I had much more to do. It's almost like, oh, good for me. When we were working on the album, the whole team got sick. I suffered from a mild virus, and even no one knew what it was. But in the city, everything has changed drastically. A lockdown began, and the city authorities banned the gathering in the studio. Several times we ignored this rule, and the police began to approach us. They said, what did Kanye do? He just bought a ranch in Wyoming, 30 to 40 miles from the nearest city. There were only mountains, lakes, nothing happened either, and we, with all the equipment, spent 3 months with the whole team on the farm, just making music. We did hear about Kanye buying a second ranch, and I'm trying to remember when that was. Like, if this is Wyoming, right? Just this big blank white space is Wyoming. I'm pretty sure his ranch outside of Cody is over here. And the second ranch that they talked about him buying was like on the opposite side, like over here. So it was a pretty big distance from the main ranch to the second ranch. And I remember thinking, like, why? But if he bought that second one just to have people kind of outside his home with a place to go and work on music, and it's close enough where I think it's like 3 to 4 hours travel, then, you can go and meet up with people if you need to. You can bring them to you, but they're not sitting there on your property all the time. So maybe that's what that is referring to. Or maybe he's just referring to the fact that Kanye had bought a ranch in Wyoming prior, right? And is just referring to the 2018 purchase. I'll have to look into that a little bit more, just check up and see what the date was for that second Wyoming ranch. The album Donda is ready last year, but another album. Okay. When you work for the West, you never know what to bring tomorrow. Even if you go to the studio, you have no idea what will happen there. They want to release the album in 2020, then he's ready completely. It's really the coolest album, but it started to change. Maybe 5% of the original remained in the release. The release itself is postponed every month, and there are no specific dates, specific actions. We just make music. We make lots of different people, producers, artists, and the fact that he went to the presidency further slowed down the process. He flew from Wyoming to some sort of rally, pushed his speeches, and flew back. So I'm guessing that was leading up to the July 2020 release. It's like, okay, it's going to release, and then it's getting pushed back, and then Kanye's doing the presidential thing. And at that point, there's no set date anymore. It's just, when we release this thing, we release this thing. And I know someone that was reached out to work on the project. And when they were talked to about it, it was just like, hey, send music. There was no actual prompts for what was going on, which kind of aligns with this, like no specific dates, no specific actions. It's just people kind of putting things together and sending it all to Kanye, and Kanye kind of mixing and mastering and sampling and producing and directing in the way that he does, with no actual directions in terms of like, make this gospelier, or we need a song that sounds like A, B, C, and D. Okay. The West Studio is a note on aircraft, in the vehicle, in the park, on the ranch, if there is no electricity. He's still in the studio, even though it's hard to call it a studio, because Kanye West Studio is a recording of sound on an airplane, in a car, in a park, at his house. So Kanye just records everywhere, right? Like on the airplane, in the car, in a park. And you can imagine him in the back of a big SUV, like he's just recording into a phone, or has somebody sitting next to him with a mic, and Kanye's just rapping into the mic. At his house in Mexico, in some hut on a farm in Wyoming, when there's not even electricity. This is the studio. If he flies somewhere, he always includes a team so as not to interfere with the process. At first, I didn't understand it. They say, why bring 15 people if you can send files over the internet? But I think it's easier for him to explain what we're doing, showing the environment, sharing feelings, rather than on the phone, which is true. I mean, when you're in a artistic space that is inspired by location and what you're experiencing at that moment, I think it kind of helps to have people there with you who are also experiencing the same things, that are on the wavelength in at least some tangential way, right? As opposed to just being at home away from you. And you can have people that work like that, of course, but it's better to have people kind of around and experiencing the same thing, and who you can just have the direct conversations to. I don't think Kanye wants to be calling them up all the time, texting them all the time, especially if people are prone not to answer at the drop of a hat and don't know what he needs from them at any given moment. I'm sure it's probably less stressful for them as well to be with Kanye in person rather than seeing that he could call them on the phone any minute, and what happens if they decide to go to a movie, what happens if they're like eating dinner, just all these things that could be stressful for everyone involved, right? I worked as a sound engineer, recording music and doing a bit of mixing before sending it to a mix engineer. I have a former classroom base at school. I was trained in technical things in terms of working in the studio, but in the conditions where we work, they can't be used. Yeah, you're not in the studio. You're kind of out and about in the world. What else do we have? I feel like I look larger than what I normally do on here. We had group Bible studies several times a week. It wasn't forced, but he wanted people to somehow come for the sake of interest. A pastor came to us. We read the chapters. No, it's not a sect, just for general education. I loved going there because that's where you can talk to Kanye, not only about music, but also life, humanity, economy. He did not know about Belarus, and I did not have the opportunity to educate him about the matter. So I'm wondering if that's supposed to be that in the early portions, like Kanye didn't know about Belarus, and during these Bible studies, Nikolai was able to kind of talk more about the experience of Belarus and what Belarus is like, or if he's just saying, no, I never had the opportunity to talk to him about it. But this is something that we saw during the Atlanta listening sessions, or when Kanye was living in Atlanta, there were a few times that people posted to West Sub Ever and our Kanye and just social media these one-shot Bible sheets, and people were wondering if it was part of the rollout, like what it was, and I'm pretty sure it was just part of a weekly Bible group that Kanye was running, and this seems to reinforce that idea that Kanye just likes having Bible groups for the people with him. And it seemed like every Wednesday when he was in Atlanta, he would have a pastor come through, and that's something that's been going on for quite some time. So work and live in the stadium. The last 6 months before the release have been very stressful. We flew to Atlanta to release the album. Yes, it was ready. And in his home country, Kanye West decided to make a show. I think it's supposed to be like home city, right? Atlanta was where Kanye was born. But at first, no one spoke about the stadiums. It was the same as before. Relatives and friends visited. Why can't we make this presentation for 40,000 people and in addition stream around the world? So it's essentially, Kanye was initially just going to have a smaller listening party and then had this idea, like, we should make this huge. Everybody wants to be a part of this. We should stream it. Let's go big. And that's what happened. Asked himself a question, Kanye West, and it started. In the locker room, we gather a studio, and I looked, and there are also beds, which is wild, right? I think so. There's something I didn't understand. From the outside, it seems like madness, so I thought until I felt all this atmosphere in myself, which I think is just understanding like the energy of being in that stadium around everyone, working solely on this project with that focus in mind. And then, yeah, I was like a football player as if we were preparing for the final game. So there's just something very competitive, something driven that comes through when you're in such an atmosphere working on a project, knowing that people are going to fill that stadium. People are going to come and see the fruit of your labors, and how insane that must be when you're just standing on the field looking around thinking, oh, the stuff that I'm doing in here, just kind of isolated with the small group of people that no one knows about, is going to be presented over these speakers. Man, what a cool feeling that must have been. Then an idea came to his mind to finish the album at the stadium. Even though we thought it was done, in his opinion, the album wasn't even close to starting. Which, yeah, right? Everybody thought for listening party one, the album's done, it's going to come out. And Kanye's like, nah, don't know about that. As a result, we lived in locker rooms for 2 weeks. The conditions, of course, are steep. Morning or afternoon, it's not clear. But when you enter this healthy arena, you see these stands, the roof, you're strengthened. That's what I was just saying. I hadn't even read this before. So it just lets you know my ability to know theory of mind, right? By the way, I also sleep 3 to 4 hours a day. Okay, so that's brutal. 2 weeks, 3 to 4 hours a day, working nonstop on this stuff, or if you're not working, at least being present to engage with Kanye and understand what's going on, be ready at a moment's notice. that is an intense work schedule. And I mean, the final product is incredible, but at the same time, man, what people went through to make sure that we had this album, you just got to give them a little bit of a round of applause, you know? The first presentation was not very good. We recorded the vocals in the dressing room seconds before it was called out around the world. These are not the best tracks. Everything is very raw. When you listen to the tracks in the stadium, you understand what you are missing. And I think everyone pretty much agrees with that, right? Even if you enjoyed a lot of aspects of Listening Party 1, I think if you talk to almost any Kanye fan and you play them the songs from Listening Party 1 and said, if this was the final album, is this a good album? Most people would be like, no, not really. I mean, it's okay. It's interesting. Like, it has some exciting parts, but it's missing a lot, right? There's a lot of flaws. And yeah, you get Nikolai kind of admitting the first presentation was not great. But that's one of the things that I think you should take away if you're an artist, not even an artist, you're just a person. You see that Kanye had no fear in playing material that wasn't completely finished in order to get reactions to it and get an example of how people responded to it, how he felt about it, right? Because it's one thing to think, oh, this is good enough to play in public, and then you play it in public, and like Nikolai's saying here, you understand what's missing. And sometimes you need that perspective of putting it out in the world in front of other people to really get a sense of how they're viewing it. And then you can go back to it and say, all right, we're going to change this, we're going to do this, what if we move this here, what if we added this, took this away, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's something that can translate to any work that you're like working on, right? I was trying to find a different word for work, but anything that you're working on, right? You shouldn't be so afraid to share it with people, to be open about your process, to get feedback on it. And even if it's not active feedback, like, hey, tell me what you think of this, but feedback in the sense of you taking that step to show it to someone else and then seeing it through their eyes can go a long way. So don't be afraid to be a little more open about your process, which is something that can just be good in life, right? Tell your friends more about what you're doing, that's something you might not have shared with them right up front. Like, oh, you know what? I'm really excited about this thing that I might pursue. I'm kind of nervous about this thing going on in my life. When you start to open up in ways that you're usually fearful about because you don't want to show flaws, you don't want to let people see something until you feel it's perfect, you actually gain a lot of power and strength in bringing people into the process, in trusting them with things that aren't fully fleshed out, whether it's emotions or thoughts or work or what have you. I think it's a really empowering process. I mean, it's something I do with this YouTube channel, right? It's like all these videos are raw. I'm not editing this. It's just me talking all this time. And that can be not great in a lot of ways, right? Because if it was smoothly edited and put together in this great package, I'm sure it would do better in a lot of ways. But I also think there's something very powerful, hopefully, and inspirational in the idea that it is just someone sitting in front of a camera and talking, right? You don't have to know the video editing stuff. You don't have to go above and beyond making these very pristine, high level documentary, like short film, like packages. It can just be you talking about something that you're passionate about and knowledgeable about as I hit the desk and cause everything to rattle. See, that's something someone else would cut out. So don't worry about making things perfect. Just do good work and strong work, and then make edits as you go along, make improvements as you go along. And I don't know why I had to go on this long tangent, but I felt inspired. So moving on. Okay. Now he is studying Western archives. Actually, this album isn't over yet, so this is what we talked about earlier. That is, it comes out, but it is possible that after some time we'll hear a different sound, choice, theme, movie. Now Donda is gone, and I'm working on her old tracks, so that's just part of the translation errors. Now the album is done, and I'm working on old tracks because West wants to go through all the archives and make a playlist of forgotten tracks. They are many, therefore in the near future I will work in this direction. which, who knows if that'll actually come out. We were also told we were going to get a Kids See Ghost anime and Kids See Ghost 2, and that Kanye was opening like a Yeezy flagship store in Philadelphia. Like all of these things from West Day Ever just never really manifested. So this might be another project that kind of gets rolling and then peters out. But then at the same time, if it does get rolling and we get it, fantastic. Personal life. Oh, yes, personal life, of course, has changed. Yes, I totally gave it to Kanye West, and it's cool. I realize now that I want to dedicate 100% of my life to a career. When this understanding came, I sacrificed my relationship. When the opportunity came to work in the West, so did the hunger. Definitely gain experience from all these people. So essentially, it seems like he's saying that he sacrificed, I don't think a romantic relationship, but just he sacrificed all of the kind of social stuff because he's so dedicated to career opportunities at this point, which I think that there's a period for that, right? You just have the opportunity to spend 3 to 5 years or even 5 to 10 years working seriously on something that's going to make you like a legend in the industry and build up your portfolio and your name and really set the tone for the rest of your life. I think that's a deal most of us would take, especially if we're in our 20s, early 30s and aren't married, don't have kids. Like, why not go down this route when you know that the experience that you're getting is so one of a kind, once in a lifetime, and going to set you up for the rest of your lifetime. So yeah, I get it. I remember showing my parents that my name was on the same line as Kanye West. You see tears of pride in your parents, and it's beautiful. Such emotional moments do not happen every day. So that's really nice. And that's everything in this interview. So congratulations to Nikolai for getting this opportunity. It's cool that he's been able to be part of Jesus is King and Donda, and we'll see what's in store next, especially if this archive project comes about. It seems Nikolai is fully dedicated to making it a reality as long as Kanye wants it to become something. So who knows? We'll just keep an eye on Nikolai, But that's it for this video. If you're enjoying the channel and you want to support us, the easiest way is to like, comment, subscribe, as any of those things tell YouTube this is a channel people enjoy, so then they show it to others, which goes a long way in helping us. We also have our podcast, Watching the Throne, a lyrical analysis of Kanye West that is the most comprehensive and longest running Kanye podcast in existence. We are the foremost scholars of Kanye's discography in terms of its lyricism and the literary artistry of his discography. So if you're looking for explanations of each song and each album, we have you covered. We have done The College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation, 808s and Heartbreaks, 808s and Heartbreak, not Heartbreaks. Yay, Kids See Ghost, Jesus is King, and we are up to Hurricane in our Donda season. For Donda, new episodes are coming out on YouTube as well if you'd rather watch the video rather than just listen to the audio. But for all the other albums, it's audio only. But our podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, Tidal, wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple Music is another one. So check it out if you never have, and it will forever change how you listen to Kanye's music. You may not agree with everything we say in every episode, but there's going to be a few things in every episode that make you go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't think about that. That's amazing. So check it out. Okay, until next time, stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.